What would you do if the people you trusted to respect others chose cruelty instead? And what if the victim was your own daughter? Today, you will witness a story where arrogance meets unshakable justice, and a father's fury changes everything. Before we dive into this powerful story, let me ask you, have you already liked this video and subscribed to the channel? That simple click helps stories like this reach more people and inspire real change. The sound of plates shattering against the floor echoed through the small diner like a warning shot. It was just a normal Tuesday morning in the heart of Belo Horizonte, when 5 teenagers decided to turn the place into a stage of cruelty no one would ever forget. Sitting quietly in her corner was Isabela, a 17-year-old medical student. Brilliant, determined, and full of dreams. Her wheelchair did not define her, but at that moment, with tears streaming down her face and her dignity under attack, she felt smaller than ever. The group of teenagers, Gabriel, Lucas, Pedro, Thiago, and Matias, sat down, just one table away from Isabela. Their laughter was loud, their arrogance obvious, and soon their words became daggers. "Look at her," Gabriel muttered, mocking her wheelchair as his friends chuckled cruelly. They weren't whispering, they wanted everyone to hear. Isabela tried to ignore them, focusing on her notes, but humiliation burned on her cheeks. Then Gabriel stood, towering over her, pretending to show concern. "Tell me, do you even feel your legs? Or are they completely dead?" His question sliced through the silence of the diner. Other customers shifted uncomfortably, but no one dared to intervene. When Lucas kicked her chair, spilling coffee and books across the floor, the laughter grew louder. Thiago pushed the wheelchair back and forth like a toy car, while Pedro and Matias joined in by throwing her food on the ground and stomping on it. Tears welled in Isabela's eyes. She wasn't just losing control of her morning, she was being stripped of her dignity, piece by piece, in front of a silent audience. At just 17, Isabela carried more resilience than most adults ever would. Orphaned at the age of 8 after a tragic car accident that took her parents and left her unable to walk, she was adopted by Colonel Roberto Silva and his wife, Marcia. The wheelchair was not a symbol of weakness, it was a symbol of survival. Despite her limitations, she excelled as a medical student at one of the most respected universities in Brazil. She dreamed of becoming a neurologist, determined to help others overcome obstacles just as she had. But that morning, none of her achievements seemed to matter. Surrounded by cruelty and paralyzed not by her body, but by humiliation, her spirit was being tested. Every insult, every laugh, every cruel gesture felt like a hammer trying to shatter the core of who she was. She fought to stay composed, but when the tears finally fell, her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. And with one call, everything was about to change. These were not just any teenagers. Gabriel, the ringleader, was the son of a wealthy construction magnate. A boy who had already brushed with the law, more than once always protected by his father's money and influence. His friends, Lucas, Pedro, Thiago, and Matias, came from equally privileged families, driving expensive cars and studying in elite schools. They were raised in comfort but starved of values. To them, respect was optional and empathy was non-existent. Their laughter was not just mockery, it was the product of a mindset that believed money could erase consequences. In their arrogance, they believed no one could touch them. They believed their family names made them untouchable. But that morning, in that simple diner, they were about to collide head-on with a reality they had never known. For beyond their cruel games, on the other end of a trembling phone call, was a man forged by discipline, duty, and an unshakable sense of justice. The mockery escalated. What began with sarcastic remarks quickly turned into physical humiliation. Lucas kicked Isabela's wheelchair again, spilling her belongings across the floor. Thiago pushed her back and forth like a toy, roaring with laughter. Pedro threw her food onto the ground, and Matias ground it beneath his shoes with smug satisfaction. Isabela pleaded through tears, "Please, stop." But her voice only fueled their cruelty. The boys pulled out their phones, taking selfies beside her, mocking poses, hashtags dripping with disdain. Even the diner's owner, Donna Maria, tried to intervene, only to be threatened with the power of Gabriel's father, a man who could turn her diner into a parking lot overnight. Isabela felt her chest tighten, the weight of helplessness pressing down. But she still had one strength left, her voice, and a number memorized by heart. With shaking hands, she dialed her father. "Dad," her voice cracked, barely a whisper, "I need you." On the other end, Colonel Roberto Silva listened to the sound of his daughter breaking, the cruel laughter of strangers piercing the line. And in that instant, the calm, disciplined soldier became something far more dangerous, a father ready to unleash fury. The moment Isabela's trembling voice reached her father's ears, the atmosphere inside the military command shifted. Colonel Roberto Silva, a man with over 30 years of impeccable service, froze as he recognized the desperation in his daughter's tone. "Where are you?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. "The diner, Savasic," she whispered, before her words dissolved into sobs. The cruel laughter of the teenagers echoed through the phone, piercing him like knives. The colonel didn't hesitate. He stood, his uniform immaculate, his eyes sharp with purpose. Every soldier who crossed his path felt the weight of his silence, stepping aside as he marched through the corridors. "Sergeant Moreda," he ordered with calm authority, "prepare my vehicle and call Carlos Pereira and Santos. Full uniform, basic armament. We move out in 2 minutes." "Yes, sir." The destination was clear. The mission, undeniable. Our father's love, fused with the soldier's discipline, was about to meet arrogance head-on. Engines roared through the busy streets of Belo Horizonte, their sound heavier, sharper, and more commanding than ordinary traffic. First came the motorcycles, then the black military vehicle, bearing the golden insignia of the Southeast Command. Inside the diner, the laughter of Gabriel and his friends began to fade, as the unfamiliar rumble grew louder. Customers turned their heads toward the windows. Whispers spread quickly, something serious was unfolding. When the vehicles stopped outside, 3 soldiers stepped out in perfect formation, taking positions at the entrance and around the perimeter. Then the diner door opened. Colonel Roberto Silva entered, every step echoing authority. His uniform gleamed, his chest carried the weight of medals, and his gaze cut through the silence like a blade. He looked around once, taking in every detail of the spilled food, the broken dignity of his daughter, the trembling boys trying to mask their fear. "Daddy," Isabela's voice cracked with relief, a faint smile breaking through her tears. And in that single moment, everyone in the diner knew the storm had arrived. Colonel Roberto Silva knelt beside his daughter first, wiping the tears from her cheeks with a gentleness that contrasted with the steel in his eyes. "Daddy's here, my girl. You're safe now." His words carried comfort for her, but a thunderous warning for everyone else. Then he rose to his full height, 85 meters of unwavering authority. He turned to face the 5 boys who suddenly looked far smaller than their expensive clothes and privileged names suggested. "Do you have any idea who you are?" he asked, his voice low, but heavy enough to make the plates on the table tremble. Lucas tried to stammer an excuse. "Sir, we're just students. We didn't do anything serious." The colonel's fist slammed against the table, sending dishes rattling. "Humiliating a young woman in a wheelchair is nothing serious." His voice cut like thunder. Tiago broke into tears, Pedro shrank behind Matthias, and even Gabriel, once arrogant, now struggled to keep his composure. But when he tried to lean on his father's influence, the colonel's laugh was colder than ice. "Your father owes the army 3 contracts and faces charges that would bury him in court. Do you want me to call him now and tell him what his son was doing here?" Gabriel turned pale. The arrogance that once fueled his cruelty was collapsing under the weight of consequences he had never imagined. With a single gesture, Colonel Roberto signaled his soldiers. They entered swiftly, standing behind each boy like shadows of justice. "Names, addresses, schools, and phone numbers," he ordered. "Write everything down." Lucas tried to protest, his voice shaking. "This is abuse of authority." The colonel turned his gaze on him, cold and unflinching. "Abuse of authority is what you did to my daughter. I am fulfilling my duty to protect a Brazilian citizen in a state of vulnerability. And make no mistake, there will be consequences." The soldiers began recording every detail, while Donna Maria, the diner's owner, confirmed the cameras had captured everything. "Perfect," the colonel replied. "Provide me a copy, and prepare the full bill for damages, including my daughter's meal, and every piece of property they destroyed. These boys will cover it all." Gabriel, trembling now, finally stammered, "Please, sir, we'll pay for the damages, we'll apologize. Just don't tell our parents." The colonel stepped closer, his voice sharp as a blade. "When she begged for mercy, you laughed. When she cried, you mocked her. When a 60-year-old woman asked you to stop, you threatened her livelihood. And only now, when you face real consequences, do you want forgiveness?" The boys lowered their heads. For the first time in their privileged lives, they realized money and names would not shield them. Justice had arrived, and there was no way out. Within days, the security footage from the diner leaked online. The humiliation, the cruelty, and finally, the moment of reckoning with the colonel's arrival. Every second was there for the world to see. The video spread like wildfire across social media. Outrage flooded the comments, with thousands demanding justice for Isabela and condemning the arrogance of the 5 boys. News outlets picked up the story, and soon it became a national conversation about bullying, privilege, and the treatment of people with disabilities. Universities quietly withdrew admissions for the teenagers. Business partners began pulling away from their families' companies. The influence and untouchable power their parents once boasted evaporated under the weight of public scrutiny. And in the center of it all was Isabela, no longer just a victim, but a symbol. A young woman whose pain had sparked a movement, and whose courage now inspired countless others facing similar battles. The boys, who had once laughed without fear, suddenly found their lives exposed to a country that now demanded accountability. The colonel was a man of precision. He didn't leave justice half-finished. With undeniable evidence in hand, he confronted each family directly. The proposal was clear: either face formal charges of defamation, abuse, and discrimination, or accept a strict path of reparation. And so, Gabriel, Lucas, Pedro, Tiago and Matias were ordered to perform 200 hours of community service in rehabilitation centers for people with disabilities. They would pay every medical and psychological expense for Isabela, cover the damages to the diner, and issue a public video apology that spread online faster than their cruel laughter ever had. The service began as punishment. Dressed in simple clothes, without luxury or status to shield them, they cleaned halls, pushed wheelchairs, and assisted patients who lived every day with the challenges they had mocked. At first, most of them treated it as a chore, avoiding eye contact, dragging their feet through the hours. But something was happening. Each day chipped away at their arrogance, forcing them to see what they had refused to acknowledge before: the humanity and strength of the very people they once despised. Among all 5, Gabriel was the one who carried the heaviest fall. He had always been the leader, the loudest voice, the one who believed his father's name was a shield. But now, stripped of privilege, he faced the consequences of his cruelty head-on. At the rehabilitation center, he met Maria Eduarda, a young parathlete who had lost her legs in a motorcycle accident at 16. One afternoon, after defeating him in a match of adaptive table tennis, she looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Do you think I pity myself? My life is full. I have dreams, relationships, and a career ahead of me. The only difference between us is that I use wheels, and you use shoes." Her words echoed in Gabriel's mind for weeks. For the first time, he began to question everything: the arrogance he had lived by, the values his parents had instilled, and the cruelty he had embraced as entertainment. Slowly, change began. He no longer served his hours reluctantly. He began listening to the stories of those around him, helping not because he had to, but because he wanted to. His fall from privilege had become the start of something he never expected: growth. While the boys were facing their harsh lessons, Isabela's life was taking a new direction. What had once been her most humiliating day had now become the turning point of her journey. Messages of support flooded her phone. Invitations to speak at schools and conferences arrived from across the country. An editor even approached her with a book deal to share her story. But what truly mattered wasn't fame, it was purpose. One evening at dinner, she looked at her father with determined eyes. "Dad, I still want to become a neurologist, but I also want to dedicate myself to helping children and teenagers with disabilities who suffer from bullying. No one should go through what I did." The colonel's stern expression softened into pride. "My daughter, you've turned pain into mission. That's what true strength is." Isabela no longer saw herself as a victim. She was now a voice for the voiceless, a symbol of resilience and dignity. Her wheelchair wasn't a limitation, it was a platform, carrying her forward to inspire change. 6 months after that unforgettable day, Isabela returned to the small diner in Savasi. The familiar smell of fresh bread and coffee filled the air, but something new caught her eye. Donna Maria, the owner, greeted her with a warm embrace and a proud smile. "This place has changed because of you, my dear. We now have an inclusion corner, ramps, adjustable tables, and a space designed so everyone feels welcome." Isabela looked around and saw it. A corner of the diner transformed. not just physically, but symbolically. What had once been the scene of her deepest humiliation had become a beacon of dignity and respect. This terrible day gave birth to something beautiful, Donna Maria said, with tears in her eyes. Your strength inspired us to do better, to be better. As Isabela sipped her coffee and beat into her favorite poem, Nasce Pa, she realized that her story was no longer just hers. It had become part of the community, part of a movement bigger than she had ever imagined. As Isabela sat by the window, savoring the peace she had earned, the door opened. Gabriel stepped inside, his posture no longer arrogant, but humble, almost hesitant. For a moment, their eyes met, and he walked toward her table. Isabela, he began softly, I know an apology can't erase what I did, but I need you to know you changed me. Not just because of the consequences, but because of your strength. I've been in therapy, I've started volunteering on my own, not because I'm forced to, but because I want to be better. Isabela studied his face. This was not the boy who once laughed at her tears. This was someone different, someone broken, but rebuilding. She nodded slowly. Gabriel, what you did was terrible. But everyone deserves a second chance if they truly change. If your words are real, then something good has come from all the pain. For the first time, Gabriel smiled, not with arrogance, but with gratitude. And in that small diner, a story of cruelty had come full circle, transformed into a lesson of justice, strength, and redemption. Before we close this story, let me ask you, have you liked, shared, and subscribed yet? Stories like this deserve to reach hearts everywhere. When you support, they can